You're listening to episode 16 of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast. Hey, everybody, this is Darlene of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide, the podcast that encourages you to stop dreaming and start doing. Before I dive into this week's episode, I wanted to share some exciting news with you. A new podcast series is underfoot. In March, I will be launching the podcast Home Office Fit, where I will be interviewing fitness professionals and those working from home that are finding ways to fit fitness into their lives. I'll also be providing news and resources. So to learn more about this brand new podcast and to sign up for a launch notification, head on over to homeofficefit.com. Now, on to today's episode. This week, I speak with a fellow dreamer. Well, actually a dreamer that is not just dreaming, but pursuing all of his life's dreams. Today, my guest is an entrepreneur that knows a lot about making dreams happen. In 2014, he decided to pursue his dreams of owning a business. Shortly after his decision, he launched the Motivational Dreamers podcast, became an author of 2 books, 31 Life-Changing Concepts, and the book Dream Big and Win. He's also a speaker and the creator of the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. Here is my guest, Joe Pardo. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Darlene? Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's great to have you here. And for everybody listening, it's a fellow New Jersey podcaster that I'm speaking with today, so that's super cool.
Yes, it is. And so I'm always happy to talk with other New Jersey podcasts.
Absolutely. Well, I did a brief introduction, but I'd love for you to take a few minutes to tell myself and the listeners more about your business and why you started it, why you decided that it was time to pursue that dream.
So for me, I grew up in a family business that had existed since before I was born. I come from a line of entrepreneurs starting multiple businesses over the course of decades. And for me, it was like, I always wanted to do something more or different than run the business. They were like, you can do whatever it is that you want as long, we'll be proud of you as long as you do what do it to the best of your ability. And that was pretty profound for me. So I did some of that stuff. Like I grew up DJing through the end of high school. And for a while after high school, I was doing a lot of gigs and stuff. But I still was working at the family business, and it was I kind of just let it go because I really didn't care for school. So, but the funny thing with dreams is you don't always realize what the universe has in store for you or how things are going to work out later on in life. It wouldn't be until the middle of 2013 that I finally worked up the courage to tell my dad, like, hey, I want to go back to school and do something else because I'm, this is all great and all, but I just feel like there's a different purpose for me, and I'm just not feeling it here anymore like I once was. It was about 9 months after I had told him that I was preparing to leave. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have a degree. So I started, my first step was to go back to school, and then that turned into trying out a bunch of different things in the meantime to figure out what it is that Joe actually wants to do with his life instead of working there at the company. So it was about a month after it had been well past time for me to leave because of tensions rising, because obviously my dad was not overly enjoyed about the fact that I wanted to leave the company. And so I left. And about a month later, I was on my way to Disney World, actually, and I found out about podcasting as a business. And I was like, well, I never thought about it as a business. I was like, well, I guess I could interview entrepreneurs and CEOs and stuff like that because I have an extensive business background. But I was trying to get away from that because that's not really where I wanted to be and not where my heart was. So I was like, well, I know a lot more people that live their dreams, are doing cool things and all that because I love connecting with people. That to me is like, how some people love to travel and go see things? Mm-hmm. That's not me. I like to go travel and meet people. That's my thing. So I love people and I love learning from their experiences and sharing stories and all of that. So it's like, oh man, this seems like it would be perfect for me. And then that turned into a 5-day-a-week show just about a month or so after I got the idea. And then I was like, okay, well, let's bring it down to 3 days because there's some books I want to write. There's some courses that I want to build. Like, I need to, start fleshing out stuff. And now I do it 1 day a week, the Dreamers Podcast. I'm up to episode 216 was the most recent episode. I run 5 other shows on top of that. I have the podcast conference. I have an online business school. And probably other things that I'm leaving out in between. But, yeah, that's the long, short version.
Wow. You said something interesting. I kind of want to go back to. You said about, once you got the courage to tell your family and the courage to change, was there a moment that, a moment where you said, well, this is it? Like, did someone say something or did something happen? What was the catalyst
for me to want to leave?
For you to actually breaking the news and saying this is what I'm going to do.
Well, that took about 2 years to work up the courage, which I really wish that I hadn't. But the thing is, and like I said, life and dreams and the universe has a funny way of working out. It was those 2 years leading up to me telling my dad that actually were some of the most profound profound years of me working at the company.
Reading into that, is it kind of like you had these profound moments and it gave you more confidence and said, all right, I'm going to do this? Yeah,
I would say that it definitely did play a part in it. And I would also say that, burning out a bit because doing such a wildly big change was both stressful. Working with employees that had worked there as long as I've been alive definitely burned me out and kind of not only taught me a lot about managing people, managing philosophy inside in business culture. It taught me that I definitely am. I have a lot more in me than I would sometimes allow people to believe or even myself to believe.
Right. You have a lot on your plate. This will be my last follow-up question, and I'll get to the other ones. You have a lot on your plate. You mentioned burnout from business. How does that differ? Working at home, working in your business, doing all these projects, how is it different? And is there any tips or advice for people that say, wow, that's a lot of stuff. Do I really need to do all that stuff and work from home?
Well, the thing, and since I started, people, especially people who don't get it, what I'm doing.
Right.
They're constant, Joe, don't get burned out. Joe, don't get burned out. You don't want to get, and I'm like, look, I'm not going to get burned out. I don't like, I mean, I know I just said that I kind of got burned out, but there was also
that was different.
Personality, personalities were involved with that. It wasn't just how much can Joe put output in as far as work and productivity and creativity and all that. And then it's really on me, right? It's not, here's a company with like 150 employees and they all have their different quirks and they all have their different things. And I'm trying to balance all that with at the same time being, 24, 25, 26 years old. So you kind of get thrown in the fire a little bit with, like I said, these people have worked there as long as I've been alive. So it's like you're taking away everything they know and saying here it's almost what you know, but it's different, and ultimately it's going to help not save the company, but it's going to help enable the company to do a heck of a lot more with that freed up cash flow. So working from home can be stressful. Sometimes I wish that I had a place to go off and work. But then I think I work to work more. And one of the things that I do is when I wake up, I'm boom, I'm ready to go. Because I know that I only have so many hours before I kind of hit that slowdown where it's I want to go take that nap that you want to take when you're at your cubicle or at your job at 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. I can take that nap sometimes. Not all the time, but I can take that nap. It's a shame that in office environments, in corporate environments, even in pretty much any environment that's work, that we aren't encouraged to go and recharge our batteries for 20 minutes outside of take a lunch or sit down in a chair. Like, that's not enough.
Right. That
but
that does not happen.
no, and it doesn't, and it is really tough because there's nights where and I've I preach a lot about the idea that you need to listen to your body, know where your limits are. You can push your limits, but you got to know where they're at first. So it's like, okay, I know me personally, I could stay up till 3 a.m. and be fine. The problem isn't 3 a.m. The problem is 3:30 a.m. Because if I stay up till 3:30 a.m., I'm not waking up at 7 or 8 a.m. I'm going to be sleeping till 10, and if I don't, I'm going to be groggy through the rest of the next day, and I'm going to get less done. One thing I had to learn how to do is like, okay, it's 10 o'clock, okay, it's 11. If I need to work till 12 or 1, that's fine, but by like 2:30, I need to be done. Like, I gotta be done. I gotta go to bed, because if I don't, my whole day tomorrow is going to be it's not wasted, but I'm not going to be able to output creatively.
Right, exactly. Definitely knowing your body and listening to your body, knowing your boundaries, even, between yourself and your work and everything else.
But it's tough, because you have to be, if you're not, it all comes back to how much money are you making. Because if you work at a job and you're going to get paid, $50,000 a year, $75,000 a year, regardless of how on, quote unquote, you are, 1 day out of the week or 2 days out of the week. I mean, you've probably seen those articles where it's like, hey, if you work in an office job, you're only getting about 1 day of work out of, 24 hours worth of work out of your 40-hour work week. And if you're lucky, you're getting 24 out. That's like almost half if you're lucky. In some cases, it's probably about 10 hours of actual, working. But when you're working for yourself, you don't have that choice. You can't just be like, and that's one thing that I think that it was great that my grandfather and my dad always tried to instill is like, look, you have stuff you have to get done. It has to be done. There's nobody else. There is no boss. One of my most hated phrases is, oh, it must be nice to work for yourself. And it's like, you're not working for yourself. You're working for all the customers. They're your boss. The cycle starts over. And then it goes right back up to you, and then it starts over again. Like, it doesn't just, end because, oh, I'm the boss, I can do whatever I want. Sure, there's times I take days off, but you know what? I schedule those days off. And on Sundays, in the mornings, I'm working on Sunday mornings at least until noon. Saturdays, I usually work Saturdays because I know that my money isn't there yet. Like, it's not where it needs to be, and it's not where I want it to be. So I need to work that much harder. And when I'm not working, I feel guilty because I know that everything I'm working towards, it doesn't matter how much stuff I do in 1 year. And I did, to my own right, I've done quite a bit in just a year and a half time, right? 2 books, to conference, all this stuff. But the problem is the money isn't there yet. So it's not good enough.
Well, speaking of money and the customers, one thing I want to talk about, because it's something you talk about a lot, and I think have a speaking topic about it, is about having a platform. So having, you have all this stuff, but if there's nobody there to consume it or know about it, well, what's the point? So tell me about platforms and, how you created, why you created yours. Actually, what platform is and why creating one is so important.
Okay, so a platform, and some people don't necessarily know what that means when I say platform.
Right, exactly.
So what a platform is you have yourself. Now, you can build a brand, and your brand can be yourself, or it could be a product based around a product or a set of product ideas, right? And what a platform does is it enables people to come find you, right? In this day and age, it's all about how can I get my search results to be as high as they possibly can for as many topics based around my product or my personal brand, which if that's the case, you are the brand. What you're trying to, that's basically what the goal is. And you're trying to connect with people on a deeper level than just like, hey, I have this thing, buy my thing. It's this thing.
That's funny. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
So the idea that you have this platform, a lot of sites have blogs, and that basically is a platform, right? A blog, a podcast, a video series. Those are a great way to build a platform so that you can bring people to you, they connect with you, they feel for what you're feeling. And then ultimately for a business, from the business perspective, you have people to sell to because you have a group of people that you now know what you can survey them on what they like and what they don't like. If you are the ideal person for said platform or product, like yourself, the creator of the platform, then you already know what are the pain points.
How did the Dreamers podcast do that for you?
So, for me, Dreamers podcast is great because I get bored easily. And that's why everyone's like, oh, Joe, you should have this, you should have a podcast about Disney. You love Disney. Clearly, for the listeners, you can't see behind me, but there's Disney stuff all over my room and, racing medals and stuff like that. But my point is I would get bored talking about Disney pretty quickly. When the idea of, hey, I can interview people that are living their dreams, it's like, wow, I could be talking to somebody. Like this morning I talked to someone in Finland. That's another country that I now can check off my box of people that I've talked to that are living there. So it's really awesome connecting these people. And what clicked for me specifically about Dreamers podcast is it was I think it was a couple months after I had started. I was actually at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey, and with some friends. And my friend who's a photographer, she's been on my show. She was like, I was listening to an episode about this guy who's a DJ. Now I don't know nothing about DJing. I'm a photographer, full-time photographer, but everything he was saying related exactly to what I deal with on a regular basis, just in a different industry. And I was like, this is exactly why I have this show, because these people, it's designed to have people that are like-minded and have that similar thread of I'm going to do it because I want to do it. That's where it really clicked for me that okay, so not only did I think that way, but I'm connecting with people who are my friends and people who aren't my friends that think the same way and are enjoying this platform for people that just love doing things that are out of the norm.
Right, or even those that want to, and they're looking to you saying, okay, I'm going to get some inspiration here and do this too.
Yes.
I want to keep going on the connecting thing. You talk about, you enjoy connecting with people through the podcast, and when you go on vacations, you go to meet people, like traveling. So you created the podcast conference, the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. Now, talking to you, I see why that makes sense. But why did you actually start it? It could have been anything. It could have been a Dreamers Conference. So why a podcast conference, and how has it helped you in your business?
So I love podcasting, right? It's funny, when I was getting started, I had, if you go back to the real early episodes, a lot of them are close friends of mine, and they're all doing different things. And in some ways, I was spinning the story a little bit to get it to make sense, right? For the
Okay.
But no, but they were, some of those episodes people really loved, and it's okay, well, that I guess I'm on to something with the story, pulling the story. It could have been a Dreamers conference. The thing about doing online business and all that is generally you want to be niched down. And my Dreamers podcast, while it is niched kind of in that type of person who wants to be inspired, or people that are inspired to go and do more and greater things, it's not niched enough to be this is the photographers conference.
Right,
if you're into photography, you want to be here. So it was, what was it, in 2014, it was December, And I was like sitting there, and I'm like, I wonder if there's a group of people that are getting together like either regularly or something like that in my area for podcasting. So I did a couple searches on my laptop and couldn't really find anything. I mean, there's a couple out there, couple smaller ones, and I was like, I would love to throw a conference. I mean, throwing events is something that even my grandfather was doing when he started his company. He would throw a vendor event at for all the customers to come and eat food and get to check out the vendors and stuff. So I've been around that all my life. DJing fit perfectly in when once I got to that level of wanting, not just wanting to DJ, but actually DJing, throwing parties and getting to connect with people and all that. Like I just love it. So it just made sense. Like, okay, I'm going to start this Facebook group, and it started with like a handful of people that I knew that lived in the Mid-Atlantic states, and before I know it, I started connecting with other people. I was like, all right, we're going to have our first meetup in New York. And I was planning on doing more meetups, but it just didn't work out, unfortunately, for 2015. But it's that's okay though. You know why? Because you can grow. You get that nice
right.
word. You can grow. So we went from one meetup where it was like 15 people in New York City, right outside of Times Square and Bryant Park. We had dinner afterwards, and then it was like, okay, now we're on to the conference. Let's start getting it going. So it was like, okay, so we're going to do this conference, and it's like $35. I'll get a couple of sponsors, and I was able to get, Audio Technica was a sponsor, which was phenomenal to have them, and Joey Kissimmee from Appendipity was a sponsor, and there's so many more, DreamHost and all of them. You can check them all out on the Podcast Mid-Atlantic site. But to me, it was like, hey, how do we have a conference that doesn't cost a ton of money? It's a one-day event. We ended up throwing it in a gym, a middle school gym, which I think it turned some people off. But for the most part, we had almost 50 people show up, and we had a great time. We had a piñata there. We did the creative podcast competition where it was kind of like an improv session where the winning team got an Audio Technica 2100 microphone. So yeah, we had like over $1,800 worth of prizes to give away, and it's like, okay, this is awesome. I let it die down a little bit after the conference, because I started to work on my online business school, and I also finished up my second book in that time. Since end of December, over like that Christmas break, Christmas and New Year's, I started getting the gears going for the next conference, which is in September. And now we're at a hotel, and now we're going to be it's actually more than a one-day conference.
Right.
And
so growth.
Yeah, so growth. And we're doing 4 meetups, one in New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and DC. So growth.
Right. And do you see people that you wouldn't have connected with otherwise connecting with you for your business or to be guests on your podcast because of the conference?
Yes. And that's one of the things, like when you set up like a conference or some kind of event, it does kind of help, it helps bring people to you, as well as the other way around. Like I have to go and I have to find people and connect with people and all that. And that's what I love doing. So hosting a conference, like it's not necessarily for everyone, especially if you don't have that background. Like I have the audio background, so I know how to set up the microphones and music and mixers and all that stuff. But I also know how, set up a schedule. I have experience doing other parties too, as well as LAN parties, which are like computer. But one of the things I like about having smaller conferences is that, and smaller, say compared to like 1,000 people or 1,500 people, is people can talk to each other, right? And you can get more than 5 minutes out of somebody because there's only 400 people. So you have the opportunity to spend more time and get to, you start to familiarize yourself with those spaces a bit more than 1,500 people.
Right, absolutely. And then you get more face time is basically what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Plus, it also is a great opportunity for podcasters, right? So bigger podcasters if they come to, Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference, they're the big fish in the little pond versus, well, they would be the big fish in the little pond, but the pond's a lot bigger and there's a lot bigger fish in that pond.
Right, exactly. More exposure for them, for sure.
Definitely. And, it goes both ways.
To wrap things up, what tip or piece of advice can you share with others thinking about starting a business or those that have already started, how to start their journey?
Well, one of the things that I teach is teaching people how to dream, right? It's not just so much that you like, you're going to make a bunch of money and this is going to be like that one big thing. Though I will say, if you do one trick, that's okay as long as that one trick makes $1 million.
Right.
But not everybody gets to hit on that. And a lot of times it's the journey that you take that leads you, as in my case, it's that journey that takes you to do things that you didn't realize that you were going to accomplish them in the way you are, right? Like, I didn't know that I was going, like, I wanted to be a child psychologist from very little to when, like, almost a teenager, I wanted to become a DJ. Well, I accomplished that part of it. I didn't get to be a child psychologist, but I do get to talk to kids about teaching them how to dream and go about not just if I could be an astronaut, that would be awesome. Like, yeah, but like, what's the steps that we need to do to get there? And not just get there, but like, what kind of life do you want to live? If you want to live in a certain type of environment where it's rural or urban or suburban, like you need to know what that is. You need to know how much money is it going to cost you to live that life that's in your mind, and then break it down. Like, okay, well, how much do I really need to make? Because I think, and you probably have had this too, Darlene. We get hung up on those big numbers. Like, oh, well, if I'm not making like $5,000 a day, then I'm not doing anything. But I'm guilty of it too. It's like, am I really making it if I'm not doing what these other people are saying they're doing? And in some cases, they're not telling the truth anyway. But it doesn't hurt any less. You have to really appreciate the small wins. Go for as many small wins as you possibly can, and those over time that'll build up, obviously. But you really need to just have that vision of what it is that you want, how much it's going to cost. It's tough. Where
can people go to learn more about you? You have several podcasts, so where can they find all of that and your book? Because I'm sure in at least one of them you break down the whole How to Dream sequence.
Yes, so you can go to superjoepardo.com.
Okay, awesome. And everything's there?
Everything's there. It's a lot.
Your hubble.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because like when marketing is a tough beast. In fact, I have a book on my desk right here called Guerrilla Marketing, and I've only about 20 pages. I'm admittedly a slow reader, which is why my books were written for people who hate to read, or slow readers. It's tough because people want you to only do one thing at a time. Like, when they go to your website, well, what's that one thing that, each web page is supposed to be designed to just have one action. But the problem is like, when you do so much, it's like, well, how do you lump all that together and make it make sense?
Right. Yeah. I struggle there too, because I had photography up and podcasts and Etsy, and it's like,
It's tough. But you know what? Yeah. That's where you have to build. And that's what I realized was Dreamers Podcast wasn't my brand. And this was probably about 4, 5, 6 months in. Dreamers Podcast isn't the brand I am. And that's when I was like, it might have been a little longer, maybe about 9 months in. I think it was, closer to 9 months. That's when I started changing all my branding away from Dreamers Podcast and making it more about me. Because there's very few other people doing the kind of stuff that I'm doing in the way that I'm going about it. So that's what's unique. You have to do it yourself. Be yourself.
It's a good point, because people are probably going to listen to this and say, well, that's kind of egotistical of myself if I'm the brand. But I do it. I'm the brand. I know I'm the brand. Any words of advice for those people that are having a hard time switching that from a product to they're the actual product?
Well, and I've listened extensively to certain rappers talk about this topic. Or rapper talk about this topic. And basically what you need to do is you need to shut that point out of your mind, because we're taught not to love ourselves. Like, even from young age, we're taught not to love ourselves. You need to love yourself more than anybody else, because no one else is going to love you as much as you are supposed to love yourself, especially if you want to accomplish more than I got the job. That's great. And I'm happy for those people. And there's a lot to be said for a secure foundation and all of that. I don't ever want to take that away from anybody, but I promise you there's more inside of you than you realize that you can create and be a part of. You just have to, it's like that. There was a golf TV, or the Golf Channel had a commercial, and it was like talking about all these great golfers and how they sucked at everything else until they got a golf club in their hand. And that's when you just have to put the right tool in the right hands, and boom, you make yourself, well, in their case, lots of money and fame, but you never know. If you put the right tool in your hand, you never know what you're capable of really doing.
Well, your website again, superjoepardo.com,
yeah.
right? .com. Thank you so much, Joe, for being a guest on the podcast. It was a fun chat, and I know that my listeners are going to be inspired. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, darling. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Joe, for being a guest on my podcast. If you would like to learn more about Joe and find some additional information about the items we discussed in this episode, head on over to dvpodcasts.com/inspired and search for episode 16's show notes. Don't forget, you can also connect with me. I'd love to hear from you if you have topic suggestions or would like to be a guest. You can send me an email, darlene@darlenevictoria.com, or connect with me on Twitter @darlenevictoria. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the podcast in a variety of ways. Head on over to dvpodcasts.com and click on the subscribe link in the navigation to learn more. Before I close out the show, I wanted to leave you with a quote that I think today's guest will certainly approve. It's a quote by Walt Disney, and it goes something like this: "All dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." Well, that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode. Until then, remember, be inspired by the most important person in your life, you. Thanks for listening. This is Darlene Victoria, signing out.